Hello, hello. We are live again. Today is a very different topic from the usual. It falls into the category of once in a while something more philosophical, something more interesting to discuss, which means this is going to be very much open to debate and discussion. As such, I am also kind of hoping that you're going to participate, or if I say so myself, expect you to join the discussion. And if you want to, you can also join me in the studio as well. The topic today is bring yourself fully to work. This kind of goes off a discussion that me and Alim Gafar had previously. Alim was supposed to join me. Sadly, he has a home emergency that he cannot, kind of step away from. Let me also make sure that he is there. He has a chance to exchange. Let me guys know if there's too much noise from the street, because I'm keeping one of my windows open because it's still pretty hot even though the temperatures fell down. All right, so I send that to Alim, and I need to keep this up for later. So first question is, what does bring yourself fully to work mean? In a sense, it is I would say, previous generation. Well, not necessarily previous, like, from but that's kind of meaningless. So I would say it's the 80s and 90s, early 90s approach to work, where you really dedicate yourself to work and to your company fully. And we have here, hi Lauri, welcome. And let me put this StreamYard link, so if you want, you can join me if you're watching via X or Twitter. Then consider joining us on YouTube as well, either on my personal channel or on the Meteor community channels. Let me actually post it up on X as well. So if you follow my X, I will be momentarily posting the link to the show on the community channel. I'm cross streaming, so that's where this comes from. So back to the explanation, and this is kind of my observation. Let's start with the most extreme example, and that being Japan. In Japan, it's the approach of, let's put that here. We can today have with the full microphone and everything here because nothing technical is happening. So bring yourself fully to work means you dedicate yourself completely to work. Means coming before the boss comes in, leaving after the boss comes in, going for all the company events, and or drinking with colleagues after work. So, and of course, giving it to everything. In America, this would be partially seen, that you'll work on a weekend, or you will be always accessible via phone or other means. So there's pretty much downtime. So that's kind of the full dedication. So part of that is also being up to very professional standards, and all those things that come with it. But and lately, you could say we might have the opposite effect. But part of bring yourself fully to work is how should I say it? Part of that is that the work-life balance is heavily skewed towards work. So let me just post this on Twitter. So this is the discussion. And lately, you could say that we have the opposite effect, and that being that more kind of geared towards the life, whatever that is for that person. But part of that is also, I would say, the lack of or the decrease of professionalism. So a lot of things to unpack here. We'll see. We will go for at least half an hour, probably an hour, as I unpack this. Of course, if anybody wants to join me, here is the StreamYard link to the studio. I'll be happy to hear your thoughts. That said, let me pull up some interesting, hopefully, articles if I can find them, or also, let's actually do first a poll of everybody here. This is a test of if you are a human and hopefully watching through YouTube, so you can reply in live chat. What is your approach to life-work balance? What are your thoughts on the phrase, bring yourself fully to work? What's your opinion? I'll wait a little bit before sharing mine. And let me see if I can find my... I didn't put it in here, so let me... I have too many tabs. That's the quite a bit... how should I say it? Downside of my working. And as I'm preparing for a few talks. Okay. So Lauri says, okay, Lauri will be joining me. So looking forward to what he has to say. So my experience, and I worked with startups. I'm right now running 2 startups, one as CEO and one as CTO, and which means that my work-life balance is skewed heavily towards work. I am making this sacrifice in expectation that and also planning that in the future, once things stabilize a bit or everything, I will switch heavily towards the life part. So, and in this case, being hopefully taking care of family. And I think I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to open up I don't remember where I put it. Nice. It's in our story pool. Put it here. Yes, this is the first article I want to share with everybody. So let's put it up there. Share screen. And I want to go through this with you. So this is from ADP research, the rise and fall of the software developer. So this is kind of more of a preface to what we are seeing. So, of course, since the start, you as a software developer commanded big salaries, but something has shifted during the pandemic, and the US now employs fewer software developers than it did in 2018. And of course, we see a ramp up of spending on software related stuff to accommodate everybody staying at home. But by 2023, so last year, the wave of hiring and reduction of workforces as that pretty much disappeared has gone down. But what they found out that it has been actually slowing down since 2020. And yeah, so let's look at the data. Oops, can we have... Okay, so more than half of US software developers work in the professional and business service sector. Okay, and here we have... that's kind of... I say that's kind of... all these categories are really, really huge. You can put a lot of things underneath them, so that makes sense that this professional and business services kind of supporting everybody else is the biggest one. Then information, again, that's very vague. Manufacturing, that's factories and similar, that makes sense. Finance and insurance, kind of surprised, but I would expect maybe a little bit more there. Trade, transportation, utilities is 8.1, and then it just drops. I would expect health more, but it's a tough industry. So this is probably where I would be as well. Professional and business services with both of my startups, so makes sense. And so they were then tracking the salaries or everything. And here is the software developer employment peak in 2019 and has been in decline, which is, interesting. So just before the pandemic, really, and then it just has been declining. I think we can see here, here's a huge bump from for the pandemic as it was on decline, but it's just on the lid, and then we have things going until this is December 2021, where I would say the worst was over. The biggest things have been scaled. So then we see people again going out of the industry, and it has been on decline ever since. So that's an interesting number, and I do believe, yes. And of course, as a result, what you have is, if you have less demand, then the price goes up. So we can see, the bump. I can actually nicely see it here as we have a bump up in, for... Actually, that's interesting. So that's in May 2020. Let's see. Interesting. So this is very surprising for me that we do see here a rise in the salaries of the of software developers during the pandemic as it starts. So higher demand, though not, but also a lot of more people coming in, still a bit of a rise, and it keeps on rising as we have seen, the numbers going down. So of course, every region is a bit different, and see, it's not actually the big metro, but we have some new ones. Okay, so San Jose, San Francisco, yeah, that has one of the biggest, as was expected. That's probably the most expensive metro area to be in, at least for web developers or software engineers in general. Then we have Boston. That's kind of the Silicon Valley of the East for America, Seattle, and so on and so on. But of course, the biggest growing salaries have been outside of these big metros, because I think part of that has to do with, kind of reaching a limit of what the company can pay, and hopefully what is a plateauing of cost of living there as well. So we see some smaller cities going up, and I would say partially also because I would say a lot of senior developers or software engineers are moving from the Silicon Valleys and so on more through the country to more, I would say, smaller cities, or cities that more align with their how should I say, their values and all those things. So kind of go to takeaways. Software had a run, but opportunities might be waning, and the emergence of artificial intelligence might be reason for the shift as employers invest in automation. But AI tools also can be a boon to developers by improving efficiency and productivity. Ultimately, regardless of how the work gets done, the functional developer remains essential to business to rely the smooth running systems. So this is kind of, I would say, a look into the future for us software developers, where things are going, and that's kind of where I want to based on our discussion. The big part here, as we've seen here, is the employment is going down. We do have the salaries still going up, which means that there is and in the full article explain there's less new beginning opportunities, but of course as you are senior you are much more valued. So that's also, I would say, big impact of AI, and I think that's going to have a significant impact on bring yourself fully to work. And let's get of this intro, let's get into it, and let's welcome Lauri from Wekan Team here. Hi Lauri, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Awesome. So nice to have you here with us. Again, if anybody else wants to join in, definitely please share your comments and questions in our live chat. Those are available on YouTube, both my personal and the Meteor community channel as well. And in there you can also find, if you scroll to the beginning, or the link here to the StreamYard. So if you want to join us here on stage and give your comments or questions live in person, you are welcome to do so. That said, so Lauri, what does the phrase "bring yourself fully to work" mean to you?
Well, there are increasing demands and more needed professionals and more security features and more and more.
So it's so is it for you that that you should be working more, or where does that kind of stand with you?
No, still working like the same, but there is like the demand is for more for the security and upgrades, and those are the most weighted for Wekan, and also I presume others too.
So, but let's also kind of wind back a bit. When you started, kind of in this career, how has that changed? Your approach to work, or working for a company now, working on a open source. How has that changed for you over the years?
At the beginning, it was mostly part-time, and for the first year, it was mostly a hobby, and nobody paid me. But after that 1 year, somebody thinking that this is so important software that they would like to pay something, and then that has increased.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So for me, kind of my history going through, I started, as an internship, and then I was around a bit in a corporate, and honestly, it just did not work for me at all. I just felt I could get excited in the corporate world for a couple of months for a project, and then just kind of the grind, I would say, of the entire process of everything happening, all the company politics, just wore me down, and it just rekindled my interest in doing open source uh, and other things like Literal Universe. So for me, I've never have been kind of managed to and I think this is kind of also a big difference between open source developers and corporate developers who don't get involved, if at all, in open source. That it just, I would say, work, but that isn't never really isn't the bring yourself fully to work, because if you bring yourself fully to work, then you would, I would say, even get involved in open source as an extension of what you're doing, probably like not fully like we are, but potentially, I would say, much more than we are seeing lately. So that's that, and that also gets us similarly, because part of bring yourself fully to work was that before, and this is kind of we started speaking with Alim, there was a distinction, could say, between work and your personal, or work and your personal life, and you had a barrier between those two. So when you when you went to work, you put up on suit, aka your uniform, and you became the the professional, the um, software developer or whatever you were. And then once you finished, you went back home and you became dad, family man, or whatever. And those and you kind of kept your personal opinions there and everything. And when you were at work, you were the company man. Your decisions were based on what is best for the company, what's best technically, and you didn't put in well, of course it had impact, but I wouldn't say as much as today. You didn't put in like you didn't start talking about in the office about politics, religion, or other things that were not related to work, which is something also I try to keep up with my when I'm doing open source and all of that stuff. I don't put in any of my political or religious view. My stream is a bit of a mix, but beyond that, so and that's why I label it usually, I think I'll say most of the time, the episodes that are that talk about non-work stuff, non-Meteor stuff, they are labeled as such, or more specifically, the technical part. Technical, it's a Meteor stream, or it's something else technical, so it's very clear. While if it's something else, I hope I make it clear. If not, let me know in the chat if I didn't do so. I'll try to fix that in the future. So and I think this is kind of the core of the hot topic, and I'll try to find some additional articles specifically to showcase that. But Lauri, since you are here, what are your thoughts on mixing these two words, and can I bring yourself fully, all your other opinions to work the weekend? How have you done that? Do you separate that, or how does that work for you?
Well, I also have been some years ago working for someone else, and that was kind of corporate life where was some closed source code and so on, but I did also then do remote work, so it's kind of the same T-shirt like before. So, but anyway, now that I'm kind of the boss and leader of Wekan, then it's my decision what are the times when working and so on. So that is a little more balanced because I can rest when it is needed, and also I can decide what happens, because in corporate life when there is some closed source and companies are growing, the problem with growing companies are that when they grow, they have less time for those meetings, and it kind of gets lost in the noise. And usually when companies grow, they at each phase they need different kind of persons. Like first there has been some kind of more traditional servers, and then cloud and other stuff coming, and the work, how the work is done is changed. But anyway, the need for professionalism is anyway, because I'm also providing commercial support and making services more improved and so on. So it kind of bringing in the open source work. It's also important to make improvements and so on.
Yeah, I think as you said, the need for professionalism is a big part, and since we are in open source, it's kind of important to realize that we are not just could say in the office, somewhere just like like in the basement where the software developers and IT support are. We are actually the storefront, and everything is made of glass, so everybody can see in. So I think that's also seriously changes how things appear, how we do things. For example, every time I go on a stream or go outside in some official capacity, I always think, okay, what kind of t-shirt should I wear, what dress in general. So for today, I've picked with this owl, which is my old club t-shirt from RIT, for my club, for the storytellers, because we are getting more into the philosophical part. If we are in talking about technical stuff or everything, you would probably see me wear the Meteor ambassador t-shirt or something with technical stuff, or probably some other, or so one of my Japanese dresses. So that would be what I would wear, and that's also a big calculation. Also everything I say, what is behind me also has a meaning there. So a lot of Japanese motives there, but also that book over there, that's the title there is Writing in the Age of AI, which is related to Literary Universe. And if you follow the different titles there, they do have some either personal relations or relations to what is going on. And you can see here on this side, it's still a bit unorganized as I'm trying to figure out exactly what to put in there. So still a lot to lots to work on here, but that plays attention. And Alan, when we kind of had our preparation for this, had an interesting point that kind of this, I would say slip in professionalism, but kind of where it started was in California, with personalities like Steve Jobs, beside all the good things and the funny quirkiness that they did. Part of that, let's say, new culture that they brought in. Oh, you're a software developer, you are not dealing with customers, or you're not customer facing, so you don't have to dress up, and you can just come with your shorts to work and work in your office. Bring your cat, your dog, all the stuff, and we don't really care what you do as long as you kind of fulfill the tasks that we need to do. If you manage to meet the deadline, and that really gets to I would say that is kind of the first building block, or not say like building block, like a first piece, kind of falling out, and it's then it just then starts growing and growing, so other things, and eventually this leads to the companies kind of coming, oh, join our Apple family, or similar things. So then eventually there starts emerge the concept of company as a family, and I would say it's like again started in the California, very much. A lot of these trends tend to start there because of just how much of a cultural dominance California has through Hollywood. And I'm kind of curious, Lauri, about in your part of the world, what is kind of the approach to these things? Because part of is companies something like a family, or what is the approach to people and working for companies?
Well, in general, many since the corona and other issues started, then many have moved to work at home. So also when seeing some live conferences, then many are speaking and making presentations at home. But anyway, could you repeat that question?
So what is the approach to, or like kind of seeing, let's not talk before the pandemic. What was kind of the approach to companies hiring, or kind of the approach of employees towards companies? Because I said, in America, what I've experienced myself a lot, it was we are like a family, and all that stuff. And I think I can find let me, I think, share this part specifically. This is one, is I think yes, kind of talking about the concept why your business isn't a family. Business have a good intention refer to their companies as families in product pages, career pages, job description, and emails, because they want to sound warm, inviting, and personable to candidates and employees. They want to appeal to millennials, currently the largest generation in the US workforce, who crave career and personal development and sense of belonging to an organization with like-minded values. So that's kind of I would say, what's kind of has been the approach. So is that something that you have experience in your part of the world, or how was it?
I think the people at Finland usually talk very short and like yes and no and so on, and it's kind of trying to make most of the working time and be very efficient and try to do what is required. So I think there is also too much emphasis on this and not much about that family or having some free time or so on. And because there are increasing demands and prices are rising and so on, so it's kind of even very hard to get some work when there is a lot of competition who will get some work. And also there is usually when there is some work, there could be a big list of what is required to do that work and about what kind of person or culture. Sometimes in some work they are more looking for some person that is behaving nice enough and not so much about is that person actually capable to have enough information and professionalism and experience to do the actual work, but that kind of depends on each work that is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just found also here this from Forbes. Stop saying your company is like a family, from Denise Leong. Um, if you think or treat your employees like family, you're polluting it more harm than good. Sure, it sounds nice, and some aspects of a family culture are important to cultivate: caring, belonging, respecting others, even if you don't like them. But leading an organization is as if it were your family is an inappropriate and antiquated leadership practice. Interesting. Instead, you should consider it as a sports team. I like here this antiquated leadership practice, because this approach to companies, or treating your employees like a family, it's not antiquated, or is it maybe the words here, but it's not old, it's relatively new. I would say it kind of came sometimes after the hippies revolution, and with another people around that. So it might be antiquated, maybe from current my generation's perspective, but still, like, historically, it's just a big blip. And what I want to get in here is the issues that I see that lead out of this approach. And I will have to really go here on a much broader scale, because this is, we are talking about sociology, anthropology issue, and it's not just the approach that the companies take to how they treat the companies, but that comes out of some social pressures. And a big part of that is, as we've seen in the and they have it's here's another from TED.com. Yeah, when companies use the word family, it can actually do damage company, and there's quite a few articles if you search. Let's see over here. You can see I am finding a lot of talk about that, which I think just underlines how pervasive this used to be. And a lot of these articles are relatively new, and I would say, kind of as you mentioned, the difference between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, that there was a big shift, because the big part was then, like as you said, suddenly people are home, and they are along with their actual family, and it kind of changes the perspective. And I think a big part, even we have here an article from Harvard Business Review. Let's say they have article, because big part of this, you just want to sound nice, you want to, and that is a response to, again, if we go back here, they will want to appeal to millennials, which I agree in this, and who crave career, personal development, and sense of belonging to organization with like-minded values. So I would say I want to really break this down, because I think it really is very nicely said here. So who crave career and personal development, I think that's kind of universal for everybody, or for most people. Part of that, I would say, is that there has been a lot of kind of the feeling of, this is what you do. You go to school, you go to college, then you get a job, then you become a manager, and so on and so forth. So there's this drive to go up on the ladder, because they told if you do that, you will be fine in life. But that then leaves out, and this is where the second part comes, the sense of belonging. And I would say, kind of to an organization here, I think it's inaccurate. I think the big key here is the sense of belonging, and I think this is something that I've kind of discovered myself. There's always this, I would say, for majority of people, the desire to be part of something bigger, something more than yourself, something that's going to drive you forward. And oftentimes those things, thanks to belongings, it could be of a community, and I think that's also kind of why I didn't really get any sense of belonging to a company or a startup, because even like the startups I work at, I've came in quite late, and maybe not necessarily didn't vibe with the culture, but that's just because I'm very different from my home country culture as well. But big part of that was that I already had a sense of belonging with the Meteor community, for example. So this is, I kind of knew my place in that community, and I had it. And since I had it, I didn't have like any other need to belong to, something, to join a cause or anything. And, it has here like, to an organization with like-minded values. Really didn't, I think that even is not, necessary, because a lot of times you also have like a sense of belonging to our nation, or to our local community. And I think the big part of this, I think, kind of shows the societal issue, where a lot of these, I would say, traditional sense of us belonging, like, with your church or with your religion, with your country, got eroded over the decades of other, what could be called, societal progress. And we've discovered that we as a humans have a need to be part of something, What do you think, Lauri? Am I completely saying nonsense here, or?
I think that the being like family and those are important for the new generation because they have only usually been at the family, and sometimes there has also been news articles that sometimes parents of the also have participated to some job interviews and so on. So some there could be so much expectations about how to behave, and then and that is kind of too early when getting some new to work somewhere to have, because when having some new person come to work, there should be the training at the beginning and telling. For example, security training, how the security is done, and how the meetings and how there is to behave and so on. It needs kind of the expectations and everything need to be told to person, so that they will do the correct thing. And because if those are only expected to be known and not told and not practiced, then that will not happen. And in general, if there is too much concentration on doing the actual work, then that could get lost in the lot of information and what is happening at the actual work. But I think because the security is also important, people need to feel safe and practice what to do in each situation where something is security related or work related, and work as team and do practice of every part of the work, and kind of bring everyone working as a team.
I think you've touched here on a lot of extra topics, some of them which go well beyond the scope of this our talk here. And man, where do I even should have written it down? But I think big part kind of like which really picked out for me in general was that, as you said there, people need to be told and taught what to do, not just expected to know it. And this is actually something I experience a lot in, you could say, my personal life, where there is a lot of expectation from my family that I will do certain things, follow certain traditions and so on, but I've never been told to do so. And the previous generations know about all of these because they have been around them since they grew up, especially since then, when the family was much closer and not all over the country and the world. So a lot of this information came through what I call osmosis. So just being in that environment, being that the stories, for example, told over and over again when somebody comes to visit the family or on family gatherings. And so a lot of these things kind of come through osmosis. The same thing at work. If you are in the office, you get a lot of the information just through being there, through doing like social interaction outside of what would be considered the official work. That's also a lot where the company culture comes in. So you learn a lot from people talking, as it said, at the water boiler, or the coffee machine, or when they go out to smoke, or similar things like that. So they've learned a lot through that. But for example, for me, when my late teens and all the way up to mid-20s, when I was outside of the country for my university studies, I didn't have a chance to interact with my family. Not to mention, even then, it would be quite difficult because, again, we are spread across the country. And when I come back, I'm suddenly expected to have certain behavior, as follow certain traditions. But a lot of the times they the artists just get disappointed and angry at me that I'm not following them. And then it's I don't know what you're talking about. And then eventually, once I start digging in, I figure out, okay, there's this family saying that I've never heard before, because I wasn't around enough opportunities where this was said, and this is not nowhere noted down. It's not in say in a company handbook or something like that. So big part of that, we are losing a lot of, you could say, oral tradition, not just with families like I'm experiencing, but also in the companies, when you don't have this additional social interaction, not to mention all the other connections that make if you're not in the office, which I think is going to be very very interesting going forward, how much of an impact this online or being just out online, and being not having offices is going to have on society. I think I can also quickly want to share with you here this channel, which has really shaped or informed a lot of my opinions. What Evolved History. This guy started just making some alternate history, and then explaining, of course, history in the past. A lot of maps. So that I really like that. And he's also going and analyzing these social and anthropological changes, and what it means for the society as well. And I want to also share this website called America's Digital Shield. I cannot share the upper part of this website because that would probably get us banned from YouTube. So let me share these two links in the chat so you can check them out. This kind of goes to the what follows from bringing yourself fully to work. And this is the what this website does is they track from volunteers that they make sure are politically balanced, what results they get when they are searching for news and other political topics. And we can see here from the tech giants, it all skews towards one political party. Same thing with all the other things, and they are looking to add more. And then what they do here is what actually would be here on the right, the results of the election if there wasn't this interference, if it was balance, you could say, or if it was if you are in this political camp, you get mostly the political news related to that camp, instead of instead of being skewed to one side. And here they have how they are spread, their surveys, or where they're getting it from. So and they've kind of automated it as well, which is quite interesting. So definitely, I think this is a issue that comes after the next step. Not just hey, we don't care what you wear, to oh, we want to feel welcome and being make you feel at home at the company offices. So yeah, bring your cat, bring your dog, it's all fine. And then eventually it's as was here, sense of belonging to an organization with like-minded values. I think the like-minded values emerge out of this as a result, because then the company culture, once you kind of open it, that it's okay to start talking about and do a lot more, go more into the personal. So you start getting into politics, you start getting into religion, and all the other potentially, I would say, highly divisive topics, which also I would say weren't as much in the past, but that's kind of the changing times. So once you kind of open up door to it, then then these companies will start adjusting towards like-minded thing, and it will then also create for those people who disagree an atmosphere of fear. And another part of big part of this is, as we've seen in the American Shield project, their data is that people start skewing, for example, the search results, because they start putting it in the algorithm their political opinions. But since everybody around them agrees that is, say, the way of the world or everything, then it doesn't even there is no consideration for a different opinion, a different worldview. And that sometimes can really clash with reality in a bad way. For example, after the was it 2013, so that was 2014, after Trump won his first term. We've got reports from insider information of employees in companies crying and having like emotional tantrums like small children. The boss is being like, oh, we are really so sorry, we are going to make all the changes so that this doesn't happen again. And lately we've seen that with I would say potentially kind of being a big pushback, because there with Trump, everything, there was, say, the alignment of the top management and the people throwing the tantrums and crying, ideologically like-minded. But now we have a conflict, say, with Palestine and the Palestine-Israel war, that we recently had people storming Google vice president's offices, and those people getting kicked out and fired, which is a huge departure from like a family, and allowing all the opinions in. And the big part of that is that there's a huge conflict with the company's I could say bottom line with this. So and it's much it becomes then a issue well beyond just you could say internal politic of one country. It becomes an international issue to get to change or start doing things like this, especially for a big company, especially for a company like Google, who has a lot of investments and I could say partners in Israel. So then that starts really breaking down, and I think this has a potential to start there. So that's kind of my big thoughts on it. So I think we've kind of gotten in this. I think it's also very much a American issue, or like it's, of course in America I would say it's strongest, while in this, here in Europe I would say there is quite a big big distinction. But the thing is, with America, so for example in startups we have also a lot of these, we are a family. I'm not sure if you, Lauri, if you've seen that around, if you had a chance to look, because part of this is, since America is the powerhouse for startups, they take the handbooks on how to run startups, how to do startups from America, and they then try to impose it or use it in, places like here in Europe. So a lot of the startups have very much the, I would say, the California feeling, or at least what they perceive as the successful California startup. So, we have a ping pong table, and we have a bar, we have a PlayStation, we can relax, between work and all that stuff, which really I'm not sure, because I don't recall really anybody using it that much, but it's supposedly one of the perks of the working environment. Any thoughts, Lauri, on that? Apologies for taking so long.
Yes, maybe it is American or USA thing that usually when people receive some feedback, they try to mostly give positive feedback, and if there is anything critical, then only little mention about it, and if there is no ability to handle the negative feedback, I would think that in a professional environment there needs to be many different kinds of people with different ages and different and kind of skills where they are professional at, and ability to have different opinions and anyway friendly discussion, and also it is if there is so much expectation that how to behave without telling, then the one way usually in companies, for example, how it's done at Basecamp, where David Heinemeier Hansen has and others at the company has documented everything to intranet, and they document progress, and there are more information, and it can and everyone has piece to work on at their part, and there are independent teams that decide what to do, and it can all be read from the intranet, and that kind of is the more modern way to do it without so many meetings. But of course that does not happen that way in every place. So for example, some family does not have intranet about how other traditions, expectations, and so on. And
Yeah.
I think yeah.
Yeah, I want to pick, I'll gonna go back from, for families. I actually wrote a approach called, the Great House, which I can sum up my ideas in general. And once I have a family, kind of plan to really write things down for posterity. I kind of want to really go back though to what you mentioned, being able to handle negative feedback, or not being able to, as we've seen lately, which I would say is very, very new, because Americans used to be prized for, or not prized, but known for being frank, direct, and not taking any excuses. So if something was wrong, it was given that Americans just going to go straight into your face and tell you what's like in a review what's wrong, which now that's not the case. Everybody's like, oh, so you're so wonderful. Of course, not everywhere, but that's kind of the new stereotype, you could say. And which is kind of like these not giving negative feedback, only positive, has been that is something that say the East Asian cultures are known for. Like Japanese, being very polite. Say same thing in Indonesia and all the other countries around there. Being very polite and if anything, being very indirect with any criticism. So it's very interesting that we've got that now in America. And again, I would probably put that in because a big part of that, bring yourself fully to work, is that you kind of fully integrate all of your personal and professional personas together. So if you get like any criticism or anything, then it suddenly may feel that it's attack on you as a person. And given also how Americans lately sadly have become all concerned about all the minutia of personalities and whatnot, it just makes things even more complicated. But let's go a little bit here down here. This article, why family should have no place in corporate speak. Corporate giant ambassadors aren't going anywhere, and it's like constant new buzzwords every freaking year. And other than being unimaginative and disingenuous, corporatees is mostly harmless. Increasingly, however, and family phrases have snuck into our workplace language, crossing a line to the personal. So culture, reserved for ethnicity, countries, and backgrounds, now belong comfortably at work in the phrase work culture or culture fit. That's a very interesting observation, because culture is reserved for that. And really, that's, I would say, also like another thing that we are seeing is the changing of meaning of words. And usually, oftentimes, instead of getting more specific, these words become less specific, more broad, and more, in a sense, more meaningless. So that's where you can have like a paragraph, as I said here, of corporate jargon that says absolutely nothing, only at the best sounds nice. Another thing I like here is life, reserved for big questions like what are you going to do with your life. And the philosophical about is the meaning of life. It's no matter to word work, and the odd part work-life balance and work life. So I found this absolutely this one. Work spouse is used to describe someone you work closely with. Variations include work wife, work husband, office husband, and workplace spouse. Yikes, that just makes my skin crawl. The inflation of family phrases into our workplace lexicon should concern us all, because family should be in the same bucket as jargon, unless you run a family business. Work isn't synonymous with family. Very much agree. And the more we blend the two together, the more we undermine both. I like this author. Doesn't pull any punches. And I think that then the big thing, part of that is, as it says here, you can quit or fire your family, and you don't need to retain them. So families rely on loyalty, while if you are not family, you will never be a family. So that companies that consider themselves families are more likely to expect unquestionable loyalty from employees. I think that's very crucial there. Loyalty creates camaraderie, but depending on who is in charge, it can also be toxic and blinding in a family-like organizations. So there are some examples: hazing by fraternity sororities, criminal acts by terrorist groups, murders by the mafia. That's at the hands of Chris cult leaders. So that's going quite big extreme very quickly. But I really like here, that, and this might be like maybe one of the unintentional goals or benefits, or maybe more intentional, like unquestionable loyalty from employees might be the goal beyond this jargon, because at the end of the day, words have meanings. They are not just random letters on a page, and they have impact. And honestly, I find kind of like these things like work, wife, office, husband, and similar disgusting. And I hope that never comes to the open source. Just like imagining maybe because I'm a community leader, that like then maybe some newbie, I will be calling them my open source child or something like that. That's just so creepy. But go ahead, Laura, you have something to say.
Yes, the problem everywhere is that the words have changed meaning, and we need new translations. For example, when talking about security, it needs translation to corporate speak and programmer speak and so on. And then now that also when there is open source initiative that has defined some new licenses, when reading content of some open source license that is new, actually the content is that the license is about proprietary software. So we need many kinds of translations so that people really know what it is about that we are talking about, and also the change in language and the change in new technologies and everything. It kind of needs a lot of work to keep up with all the changes.
I think that's a really good point of the changes, and I think the big part here is that a lot of these new concepts are trying to hijack the old words so that they can either, if it's a bad concept or bad meaning, so I can sneak in. And so if say this, you attach some bad concept to it, then it's much more easier to defend, because like, why are you against family, why are you against being nice, and stuff like that. So they can, the proponents of it can kind of like go on you that, and so anybody else who doesn't know that's what they are doing, then looks at, yeah, why are you the bad person, why are you not, why don't you want to be nice, or something like that. And or why what do you have against family, while they are changing the meaning of it, or they're using it, they have like a completely different definition, so that they can sneak in and make it look like that everybody of course agree that what they are pushing is true. With like we have seen, as you mentioned, Laura, the uh, with the licenses, they are trying to sometimes hijack the terms that mean something different that they are describing there, or they are trying to and I prefer that, but sometimes, a lot of times, like in case of licenses, it's nefarious. They try to create a new like new words, new meanings, new words, yes, but they are putting them in a way that makes it sound like one of the old ones. So it's like related to open source. So as you said, a license that pretty much defines a proprietary work, but since they know that open source and all that thing is very popular, they try to do as much as possible to describe it so that if you are not careful, you read it and think, oh, this is open source. But if you actually read it and very carefully and go into it, you figure out, oh no, this is actually not open source. They're just using these, like open core or open client or similar things to just describe, oh, we have, we own the servers and everything, and we have, out there a client that you can read the code of. So that's very nefarious, or as you said, like different meanings for different groups, as like in terms with security, and that's also very common. Like for example, with AI and crypto, that these terms have become so watered down that they bear no resemblance to, oftentimes, to what they are talking about. I do recall somebody back in the days talking, our top, we have like an AI system that changes something here and there, and somebody asked, "Oh, our AI system? You mean our employee that does this manually, so in the back end?" So there's a lot of things, and I would say partially, or the big one here, as it says here, like in case of like like with the family concept, is that I think part of the goal is like unquestionable loyalty from employees, and that's again to generate, say, as it says here, camaraderie, belonging, and make sure that, especially like with the big companies, that hopefully to increase retention so people don't quit, and ensure that especially if the company is doing something bad, that employees don't go to the police or to the journalist to report it. So that's like one of the other many effects of family. I would say the big, also kind of related to that, is, as a result, is of course the feeling of belonging, which I think is much more strongly desired because of given of societal changes, and especially as I said, less feeling of belonging to, say, religion or your local community, especially in cities where that's very rare to have like any local community. And then what is it? Community, and then being part of something bigger. So there's oftentimes the countries don't have like any motivating goal or anything like that. So I probably the best example of motivating goal in America was the race to the moon. It's like president said, the national goal is to be at the moon before the decade is out, and towards that, let's say everything has been mobilized. It became a huge inspiration for an entire generation of children, and which those then became engineer, which then had a tremendous positive impact on on American industry and output. So, and that's missing. Today is just non-stop political bickering, and oftentimes very much disagreement even on the basic national goals. But that's for another episode on another channel. So that's thing, and of course it has then especially like this reliance on family, that we then see the bad sides, which is things like discrimination and bias, groupthink, bad judgment. And I think part of that we see among with other causes, with issues like with Boeing, most recently when you go to the hardware war, but also with some of the recent disaster in the software world, and I think this comes really, all these three are or four are exemplified when Google launched their AI, which and their image generation specifically was completely, I would say, insane. But from their perspective, it did actually exactly what it was supposed to do. It just there wasn't like anybody who wasn't in that group think to tell them what they are doing is actually discriminatory. It's biased, and in general that it's a bad judgment, because everybody was on board and agreed with the politics of everybody around them. And then this article goes into that businesses are teams, not families. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like on this, bring yourself fully to work. But I wouldn't say even necessarily like that, because if you look, and we can kind of bring this more to the open source community as well, because we are me and Lauri are part of the MeteorJS community, but we are not on the as to say like the same team. So for this this is community which has different teams, different people, different ideas. We often clash together. So I wouldn't necessarily say that businesses have to be teams, though. Sometimes like you can have like multiple teams depending on the size of the business, but now maybe I'm thinking way beyond what it is. So that's kind of like my closing thoughts here, is that this bring yourself fully to work led to this we are a family, and for obvious, well, back then not so obvious reason, this is bad and we should be reverting back, because it goes also back to professionals also. Like if you are a family, you don't have to be that professional. You can make mistakes and it will be forgiven, and you don't have to try. That eventually I would say leads to you don't have to try as much, because we are family. So you're not going to fire me, are you? You're not going to fire your your husband or your wife out of the company or out of the family. That's not what happens in families. So that's kind of, I think now we will see the downsides, and of course many things are related to that, like work-life balance. We see a lot, I would say, in the coming generations, a lot of disinterest to be so much attached to work. I would say big part is that for example, they haven't seen much of their parents because their parents were constantly at work. So that's where I kind of come upon exploring the articles and what you put here, Lauri, with me. So Lauri, up to you. You have the mic.
Yes, so actually it could be a different culture when there is some new workers and different ideas on how to do what. And I think anyway, because there is less people to do some work, so so we really need a lot of robots to do the work.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think we'll have a lot of hot topics going forward in regards to AI, or maybe probably more on my channel, because I'm more of a sci-fi person. So that will be something that I'll be discussing. a lot more there, and it's definitely going to be an issue. And I'm like constantly oscillating between, yes, it's going to be that, and especially that's going to put this rhetorics to a test, because as the companies downsize and get more robots and everything on, that's going to put a lot of stress on our social structures, of course, on all the jargon that the corporations use as well, which is, I think, going to expose them. I think in like MeteorJS community, we are very much allergic to the company, or so you could say the corporate jargon, because we heard a lot of promises that sounded nice through the corporate jargon, but that more than not failed to materialize or bring much of any positive things. So I would say we are kind of very, if not allergic to hearing that as a result of all these experiences in the past that we had in the community. And
yes, and I also think that there has been a lot of firing of middle management and so on. So it's kind of there are left programmers and coders who do the actual work, and they are kind of running that business from home office.
yeah, that's like another topic in itself, for probably another channel that goes more into the business side. Let's see, chat, anything that you would like to add? Remember, we have a live chat on my personal channel or on the Meteor community channel. If you scroll up, you can also join us in the StreamYard. We'll be, if we don't get any question or so, we'll be ending in about 3 minutes, so that me and Lauri can go back to work and to life outside of work, to keep the work-life balance, as it's called, maybe. But Lauri, kind of going more outside of the company now with open source, what does it mean for you to bring yourself fully to open source work? If that is something that you are even considering, or if that's complete nonsense.
I think open source is the new normal.
Yeah, well, that's I think that's kind of not up to discussion anymore. Again, another thing, but for you personally, where does this go? Is it like now that open source is going to, or as it probably has for you, became your main work? So you still see it as, or you see it as a work, or is it somehow a mix of hobby/fun and work?
I think it is still a hobby, because I also do other non-open source work, like teaching and making websites and so on. So kind of still is mostly like a hobby to me.
Sounds good. And let's see. No comments so far. So thank you, Lauri, for joining me today. Any other closing remarks on this topic?
Yes, I would add that the previously have been kind of long careers and so on. So in that kind of way, when some have worked at one company for maybe 20 or 30 years or more, then this kind of family thing could be kind of what can be thinking, but there is some problems with that thinking anyway.
Yeah. And I give a extreme example as well, which is very special to Japan, because in Japan, there used to be the concept of lifetime employment. So you start with a company and you are there till you retire or die. And what also was part of that is, if you died, the company would then make sure that you are enshrined, and with intervals made sure that there are offerings for you at the shrine and so on. So that was an old concept. It also was, I would say, at a time where the world was a bit easier and wasn't as fast and hectic as it is now. So it meant it was very much once companies got going and it was well established, it would go for a very long time. While today, companies come up and die very quickly, and even long established companies sometimes struggle. People change their work constantly, which I think part of the reaction from the corporate is, as we discovered here, to make it look like, oh yeah, we are like a family at our company, so that you don't leave. I have some ideas where this might go in the future, but of course, this, for, you could say, the outside of Japan, in many cases, this never has been the tradition unless it was a family company. So that's something to consider into the future as well. Anyhow, again, Lauri, thank you very much. Lauri is the CEO of Wekan. Wekan is an open source Kanban built on top of Node. So give that a look. And if you need any help with it or want to, get some premiums support, you can contact Lauri. Anything else on that from Lauri? Did I cover that, or?
Yes.
Awesome. And of course, you can find Lauri on Twitter and other social media at Wekan. Or is it Wekan Team?
Wekan Team.
Awesome. So that's that. And as for myself, if you like what I am doing, you can sponsor me on GitHub. This will help me to create more videos like these, work more on open source, and do more other great things. Like on this Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central European Time, I will be doing a help desk where I just go around Meteor forums and Slack and other places, answering questions that people have around Meteor. And of course, every Friday, we have Meteor Dispatches on the Meteor community channel on YouTube, where we talk about news in the tech, specifically JavaScript and MeteorJS ecosystems sphere of things, and all that's related to it. And with that, everybody, thank you very much for joining us today. Make sure to like this video. Tell us in the comments what are your thoughts on this topic of bringing yourself fully to work. Feel free to share any of the stories that you might have, from your past work engagements in the corporate world or other companies. And with that, thank you for watching, and we will see you, or I will see you hopefully on Wednesday. If not, then on Friday. And if you miss that, then you can also catch me on Monday on my regular streams. Have a nice week, everybody.